X-Men Apocalypse is the newest X-Men film, once again directed by Bryan Singer. This film features a gigantic cast, including James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, Oscar Isaac, Jennifer Lawrence, Nicholas Hoult, Evan Peters, Tye Sheridan, Sophie Turner, and Kodi Smit-McPhee. Ooh, that's a giant cast. The film is about the world's first mutant ever named Apocalypse, who has finally been awoken after thousands of years and wants to essentially destroy the world and create a new one using only the people who are powerful enough to survive the destruction. Apocalypse gathers up these 4 horsemen-like followers, including Magneto, in order to help him in his journey to destroy the world. And basically, the X-Men are just trying to stop him because no one wants the world to be destroyed for obvious reasons. X-Men Apocalypse features several new mutants who we've seen in the older movies but not with the new movies and the new cast, such as Cyclops, Phoenix, Nightcrawler, and Storm. With X-Men First Class and X-Men Days of Future Past both being extremely successful, X-Men Apocalypse had a lot to live up to, and unfortunately it seems like the critics are not enjoying this movie too much. And honestly, I don't know why, because I really enjoyed this movie and I had a lot of fun with it. There are problems with it, but I don't think that makes it a bad film by any means. So first off, one of my main concerns when going into this film was, will the new actors playing mutants that we haven't seen with the new cast be good? And I gotta say, I think they did a pretty great job. I thought Tye Sheridan did a pretty great job as Scott Summers, aka Cyclops, who personally was my favorite mutant back with the original movies. And James Marsden, I was like, how are you going to replace James Marsden? But I think Sheridan did a good job, so props to him. I think Sophie Turner also did an overall good job with Jean Grey, who I believe to be a really hard character to portray. I think Alexandra Shipp did a pretty decent job too with Storm, but I do have some small problems with her character and a few other characters, but I'll get to that a little bit later when I talk about the cons. I really enjoyed Kodi Smit-McPhee's portrayal of Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler was one of my favorite characters in the film, and I thought he did a good job. However, my favorite character in this film was definitely Quicksilver, which I don't think is going to be very surprising to many people because Quicksilver was amazing in Days of Future Past, and I think everyone wanted more of him, and luckily we did get more of him in this movie, which I really enjoyed. I was wondering if they were going to be able to make a better Quicksilver scene in Apocalypse compared to Days of Future Past, and you know what? It was better. Honestly, I would even recommend seeing this movie just for that scene purely. It was amazing, superbly well done, and just excellent. I cannot praise the people who worked on the Quicksilver scene enough because man, they just did such a great job with that scene, and it was only, I think, maybe like 3 minutes, but I read somewhere that it took over a month and a half to actually work and film that scene, which is just mind-blowing. So that amount of dedication is just awesome. Quicksilver was also really funny in this movie, as was expected, and honestly, the movie overall was surprisingly pretty funny. There were several meta jokes, which I love. I just really enjoy meta humor, and references to older movies and what's going to happen in the future, which they've kind of played with in the past films as well, and I think that was really well done. Additionally, there were a lot of emotional aspects in this film, which I wasn't entirely expecting. But I think overall the emotional parts of this movie were really well done, and they helped play significant roles in certain character developments and aspects. X-Men Apocalypse was also really action-heavy, and personally I would say it's the most action-heavy movie we've seen so far with the new cast. At times, I think all of the action could seem a bit overwhelming because it's a lot to keep up with, but I think it was really well done and it made sense for what was going on in the film since, like I said, it's about Apocalypse essentially, destroying the world and creating a new one. One of my favorite things about all of the X-Men films is the relationship between Professor X and Magneto, and once again, I think it was really well done in this film. But I will say that I think the relationship between them wasn't as strong as other films. For example, First Class obviously is really, really good, but with Apocalypse, you kind of get less of it, and I do think that's because it is the third film with this new cast, so there's not much else that they could build upon that's new, but there was still a lot there which I really loved. I do think the beginning of the film was a bit slow. I could see some people kind of getting bored with it and not getting hooked until a while later, but personally I didn't have too much of a problem with it. My only problem was the beginning focused a pretty decent amount on Apocalypse, and I didn't like Apocalypse. I felt Apocalypse was too OP. With any superhero film, I think it's kind of given that the villain is going to be really powerful. That makes sense, right? But with Apocalypse, I just felt he was way too over the top. For me, it just didn't make it as enjoyable as other film villains. Because Apocalypse can gain all these other mutant powers so easily, it bored me because it's like, alright, well what can't this guy do? Oscar Isaac did a great job of portraying a really menacing and scary villain, so props to Oscar Isaac on that field, but I just felt the character overall was not that great. If you have a villain that's way too powerful, then it's just going to be kind of one-sided and it won't be as fun to watch because there needs to be slight balance just so it can be a little more fair. However, because he was so powerful, I was scared of him, which I think the purpose is of a villain. But I just didn't really like him a lot. Another problem I had with the film was I felt it lacked certain character depth and development with certain people. Don't get me wrong, there was definitely some great character development with some characters. Not everyone. I think they should have touched more on certain characters because I wanted to see more of them. And I can understand why that'd be difficult to do because this is a huge cast and there's a lot of new characters being introduced. But I feel like there could have been more done to progress certain characters. I just wanted more out of certain characters, not even necessarily the older characters. The newer characters as well. For example, I love Storm. I think she's a great character and she's a familiar character that we know from the older films. But I don't think she got enough screen time in X-Men Apocalypse that I kind of expected and wanted. As a result, her character development is really kind of rushed and not very well done compared to the other characters. I also feel like they wouldn't really touch on something huge that would happen later on. After a scene happens with, certain characters and stuff, they won't really go back on that. Or sometimes I felt like a character reaction should have been bigger than it was. It just made it less realistic that certain things wouldn't be happening that I felt should have happened. Another thing that was kind of different about X-Men Apocalypse compared to the other films is that this film is really trippy. Some aspects and battle scenes were really trippy in a way where it just was kind of hard to comprehend at times. Everything made sense and was cohesive, but sometimes it was just kind of like, ooh, like this is different. It's not a con necessarily, it's just something different about the film to note. Aside from those flaws I had with the film, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a fun time, entertaining, and had good characters. While yeah, there are problems with it, I think people are being way too harsh on the movie. Superhero movies are supposed to be fun and something you can enjoy and have a good time with. And that's how I felt about X-Men Apocalypse. I'm never going to forget the first time I saw that Quicksilver scene on the big screen, and I would go see it again in theaters just for that scene. It was honestly so great. And that's not the only thing I loved about this movie. The final battle was really well done, and there's a lot of other scenes that are really great. Is X-Men Apocalypse my favorite X-Men film? No. I think Days of Future Past is still my favorite. But Apocalypse is definitely up there, and it's definitely better than X-Men The Last Stand. I'm gonna give X-Men Apocalypse an 8.5 out of 10. And buy it on Blu-ray because I think it's a film that will grow on you the more you watch it. And I think it's worth rewatching because some of the characters, interactions, and scenes are really great and worth seeing again. If you're iffy about seeing this film because of certain reviews, just go into it without any expectations. That's what I did, and I came out pleasantly surprised because I wasn't expecting anything, so I didn't think it was bad or disappointing, really. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the review, please let me know in the comments below and tell me what you think of the film itself without spoilers. That's all for this review, so I'll see you guys next time.